Just when we thought we had a moment to catch our breath after the heart-wrenching finale of 1923, the Yellowstone universe pulls us right back in. The next chapter, 1944, is officially in the works, and it's already shaping up to be a powerful continuation of the Dutton legacy. This new prequel promises not just a return to the rugged frontier and family conflict we've come to love, but the emotional stakes are about to soar even higher. With time marching forward and the world on the brink of another world war, 1944 will reunite us with several familiar faces from 1923, now older, hardened, and even more complex. But here's the kicker. If you thought 1923 tested your heart, 1944 might just break it. The choices these characters will face, the sacrifices they'll make, and the legacy they'll carry are going to leave a mark. So buckle up, because the next generation of Duttons is stepping into the fire and there's no turning back. Let's dive into the part that left so many of us speechless, the devastating ending of 1923. If your heart was shattered, you're not alone. The finale hit like a storm we didn't see coming. We witnessed the tragic downfall of two central characters, Jack Dutton and Alexandra Dutton. Jack, the fierce and determined heir to the Dutton legacy, was gunned down by Clyde in a brutal, senseless act of violence. And as if that wasn't painful enough, Alexandra's fate was even more haunting. After giving birth, she suffered a slow and agonizing death from frostbite and necrosis, a cruel end for a woman who had fought so hard for love and a future on the Yellowstone ranch. These losses didn't just close a chapter, they rewrote the Dutton saga. In one fell swoop, the family tree lost its brightest hopes for the next generation. The promise of continuity, the hope of healing, and the dream of a peaceful future were all ripped away. The Yellowstone lineage was left with scars that may never heal. Sure, Jacob and Kara Dutton are still standing just barely. They've endured, they've sacrificed, and they've led their family through unimaginable storms. But let's be honest, with their age and the toll of everything they've faced, their roles in the saga are winding down. Their final scenes felt like a farewell, a quiet exit for two warriors who gave everything. It's heartbreaking to see them fade into the background, but after all they've been through, maybe they've earned their rest. The real question now is this: who will carry the torch forward? Who will rebuild from the ashes? Because if 1923 taught us anything, it's that the Dutton legacy doesn't die easy, but it sure does bleed. So no Jacob, Alexandra, Jack, or Kara in the upcoming prequel, that's certain. Now, let's talk about one of the most intriguing and mysterious figures in the Dutton saga, Spencer Dutton. His fate, unlike Jack and Alexandra's, remains complex and full of possibility. Thanks to Elsa's haunting yet hopeful voiceover in the 1923 finale, we know Spencer survives for another 45 years. That places him in his mid to late 50s by the time 1944 begins, a man weathered by war, love, and loss, yet potentially entering the most powerful and defining years of his life. Imagine that for a moment, Spencer Dutton, scarred but not broken, stepping into the role he was always destined for. With Jacob and Kara Dutton aging and likely having passed on by then, all signs point to Spencer inheriting the Yellowstone ranch, both its burdens and its legacy. He may not have asked for this fate, but fate rarely waits for permission. And let's be honest, if there's anyone who can carry the weight of the Yellowstone name into a new era, it's Spencer. Rugged, disciplined, and deeply emotional, he embodies everything that makes this family both enduring and tragic. Whispers are already swirling that Spencer will be the emotional center of 1944, and as a longtime fan of his journey, I absolutely welcome that idea. But I want to hear from you too. Do you see Spencer stepping up as the new patriarch, or is there another twist waiting just around the corner? And here's where things get even more exciting. Kurt Russell? Yes, the legendary actor is still reportedly in talks for a major role in the Yellowstone universe, and fans are already speculating that he could be playing an older Spencer Dutton. Brandon Sklenar brought so much intensity and soul to young Spencer, but with 1944 set 2 decades later, it makes sense to pass the torch to someone who can capture that same spirit with the gravitas of age. Could you imagine Russell bringing that same raw, quiet strength to the role? That casting would be iconic. But Spencer's not the only one whose future has us holding our breath. Let's not forget about Teonna Rainwater, a character who endured one of the most painful yet inspiring arcs in 1923. After all, she suffered abuse, escape, survival. Teonna was granted a moment of peace in the final episode. But that peace came without direction. She was free, but lost. Her path hinted at Mexico, maybe even California, and if she followed that trail, it could finally connect the dots between her and Thomas Rainwater in Yellowstone, a link fans have speculated about for years. And here's the thing, just because Teonna wasn't central to the Dutton storyline in 1923 doesn't mean she won't matter in 1944. In fact, her story could evolve parallel to Spencer's separate paths that eventually converge in powerful, unexpected ways. Whether she's rebuilding her life in Mexico, carving out her own legacy, or even traveling north to Montana, Teonna's journey is far from over. She deserves more than a quiet ending, she deserves a comeback. So, as 1944 shapes up to be a deeply emotional, era-defining chapter, it's clear that Spencer and Teonna could represent two very different sides of the same legacy, one built on land and the other built on resilience. And now, let's turn our attention to one of the most quietly heartbreaking characters in 1923, Elizabeth Dutton. When the season ends, Elizabeth is left shattered, carrying a heavy burden. She's pregnant and recently widowed. Jack Dutton, the love of her life and the last immediate heir of his branch of the Dutton family, is gone. His death leaves her isolated and broken, and in the wake of so much trauma on the ranch, Elizabeth makes a painful decision. She plans to return to Boston. But while she may be stepping away from the Yellowstone Ranch, her story is far from over. Because here's the thing, Elizabeth isn't leaving alone. She's carrying Jack's child, and that child may hold the key to the future of the Dutton legacy. Even if Elizabeth never sets foot on the ranch again, her son or daughter represents a direct bloodline to the Yellowstone Empire. The implications of this are massive. This child could be raised far from Montana, far from cattle and conflict, but destiny has a way of calling Duttons back to their roots. The land remembers, and blood carries a weight that can't be ignored. There are whispers behind the scenes, rumors that this very child, Jack's posthumous heir, could one day return to the Yellowstone Ranch to stake his claim. Some reports suggest this child grows into a bold, determined figure who arrives in 1944 as a young adult, ready to challenge whoever stands in his way, including Spencer Dutton's own son. Imagine that, cousins, raised worlds apart, destined to collide in a battle for the future of the land their ancestors bled for. And it doesn't end there. One of the most jaw-dropping rumors floating around is that Elizabeth's son could ultimately defeat Spencer's son, his own cousin, in a violent, emotional confrontation that ends in tragedy. The idea of one Dutton killing another for control of the ranch feels brutal yet tragically fitting for a family whose history is drenched in sacrifice and sorrow. Will Elizabeth's child become the new face of the Dutton dynasty? Or will he be consumed by the same legacy that took his father? One thing's for sure, 1944 is not just about the past catching up, it's about the next generation deciding what comes next. So, in a way, the Dutton family tree may still continue from Jack. But let me know what you think of that idea. As much as I find myself daydreaming about the future of the 1923 characters, imagining how their stories might evolve and intertwine in 1944, There's another aspect that gets me just as excited: the possibility of seeing the same incredible actors return to bring those roles to life once again. There's something powerful about continuity, watching characters age, grow, and transform on screen, especially when portrayed by the same actors who've already poured their hearts into the roles. Let's start with Brandon Sklenar, who completely stole the show as Spencer Dutton. The raw intensity, the quiet strength, the emotional vulnerability he made Spencer unforgettable. And the best part? Sklenar has openly expressed his desire to keep telling Spencer's story. In interviews, he's hinted that Spencer's journey is far from over. He even floated the idea of Spencer stepping into the role of a mentor, guiding his son John, who was born in the final moments of 1923. Just imagine that, a war-hardened, world-weary Spencer teaching his son how to ride a horse, shoot a rifle, and uphold the Dutton Code. That kind of father-son storyline could be the emotional backbone of 1944. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to see Spencer pass the torch, not just as a rancher, but as a father? Sklenar put it perfectly when he said, "I think someone's got to teach that kid how to ride a horse and shoot a gun." That one sentence alone paints a vivid picture of the kind of legacy Spencer might leave behind, a legacy carved in grit, loss, and love. It's the kind of storyline that could define an entire series. But it's not just Brandon who's ready to return. Amina Neves and Michelle Randolph, who portrayed Teonna Rainwater and Elizabeth Dutton with such emotional depth, have also voiced their enthusiasm about reprising their roles. Both actresses are reportedly open to aging up their characters to fit the 1944 timeline, something that could open up entirely new arcs for Teonna's journey post-freedom and Elizabeth's story as a widowed mother raising the next generation of Dutton. And here's the thing: when the actors are already emotionally invested, when they're eager to continue the legacy they've helped create, that's half the battle won. You don't just have talent, you have passion. You have people who care about the story as much as we, the fans, do. So whether it's Spencer passing down wisdom, Teonna forging her own path, or Elizabeth protecting her child's birthright from afar, 1944 is shaping up to be more than just a sequel. It's becoming a spiritual continuation of everything 1923 built, and for one, can't wait to see it all unfold. Plus, we all know actors don't say things like that unless there's a reason, so it seems like this trio will truly lead the three separate storylines in 1944. One of the most compelling and haunting aspects of 1944 is the time period itself. The series is set during the height of World War II, a global conflict that didn't just change nations, it changed families. And for the Duttons, whose story has always been defined by resilience and survival, this war is more than just a historical backdrop. It's a storm that will hit home in deeply personal and painful ways. Think about it: Spencer Dutton, already a battle-scarred veteran by the end of 1923, has experienced the horrors of war firsthand. He fought in World War II. He's faced death more times than he can count, and he carries that trauma with him like an invisible scar. By the time 1944 begins, he's likely lived decades with those memories unhealed, unspoken, but always lingering just beneath the surface. And now, there's a very real possibility that his own son, young John, will follow in his footsteps and be pulled into the chaos of World War II. Two generations, both marked by war. Two men, father and son, both changed by it in ways that words can barely express. The potential for 1944 to explore this emotional terrain is enormous. We're not just talking about gunfights and battlefield flashbacks, we're talking about the internal wars, the sleepless nights, the haunted eyes, the quiet moments when a man stares at his hands and wonders how much blood he can wash away before he forgets who he used to be. Spencer's struggle with PTSD was only hinted at in 1923, and even those glimpses were devastating to watch. So imagine what it would mean to dive deeper into that in 1944 to see the toll it's taken on him after decades of carrying that pain. And now, with his son potentially facing the same demons, the emotional weight only grows heavier. This isn't just about history, it's about legacy. It's about fathers trying to protect their sons from the things they've seen and sons trying to prove they're strong enough to carry the burden. The Dutton men have always fought for their land, their family, their future. But in 1944, the fight won't just be on the ranch. It'll be in their minds, their memories, and their hearts. And that's what could make 1944 the most emotionally powerful chapter yet. Not just because of what happens, but because of what it costs. For more weekly updates and analysis on the Yellowstone franchise, make sure to like and follow. Share your thoughts in comments section and subscribe my channel for more 1923 updates. In the meantime, the video on your screen might interest you.